probably not going to be a whole lot of support for them, because right now it's life or death. It's get out, get to a safe place, get the basics covered, and then we'll look at the bigger picture.
Balloons, bazookas, boobies, bosoms, boulders, cans, hooters, knockers, melons, honkers, jugs, rack, tatas, tits, torpedoes, guns, bust, doorknobs, coconuts, and our favorite one, the girls. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, where your host, Lori, highlights mothers just like yourself and goes beyond the surface questions and digs deep so they share not only their joys and happiness in their daily breastfeeding life, but also their pain and struggles and how they worked through them.
A Missouri mom with an oversupply of breast milk donated her liquid gold to help families affected by Hurricane Harvey. Danielle Palmer gave birth to a son in February who has a congenital heart defect who is unable to breastfeed. Danielle has been pumping every day since he was born, and with an oversupply, she has a lot of milk that she has stockpiled and put in her deep freezer. She understands the hardships that moms are going through who have been displaced during this hurricane season. She has donated a whopping 1,040 ounces of her milk to a pregnancy care center called Guiding Star Mid-Missouri, who has made arrangements for her frozen milk to be delivered to moms in need in Texas. Other donated milk is also being delivered as moms just want to be able to do whatever they can to help out new mothers. These moms know firsthand the hardships mothers in disasters endure, mothers who have been exclusively pumping and now have no access to electricity. It is also not uncommon for moms under extreme stress to notice a temporary dip in their supply. For many babies, human milk is life-saving. Danielle's picture with all her donated milk and her story has been shared all over Facebook. I am thrilled to see the media also taking notice and recognizing the importance of the need for donated milk to be shared with moms in need. I'm so glad this is being visible for all of us to see. There are also many others who are volunteering their time and their expertise to breastfeeding and breast pumping moms, most whose names we will never know. I wanted to highlight another mom, Kristine, who was also watching the news and could not help but worry about all the pregnant moms who might need to be pumping soon, and all the other moms who have been pumping milk and freezing it for their babies. She just knows that with the electricity out, there's a time limit on how long they can use their milk, and she knows that soon there will be a lot of babies who have no more milk. She worried about the moms whose pumps floated away with the storm and made it impossible for them to pump. To me, Kristine represents all the volunteers whose names we will never ever know, and yet who will have a lifelong impact on mothers all over the world who are helped by loving moms who care about babies and human milk. Let's get on with today's show. I would like to introduce you today to my guest, Kristine Keller. She is a private lactation consultant with a private practice in Austin, Texas called Operation Lactation. She's been in lactation since year 2010. She's married with two mostly breast milk fed boys. She said she had a miserable time with breastfeeding. It was hard for her and her guys, and she decided to help others to prevent the same struggles. She left aviation to pursue a career in lactation. Kristine teaches prenatal classes, and she does in-home postpartum consultations. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, Kristine.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here, and I will just briefly tell our listeners how we met, although with the online world, frequently we say we met, but we actually never met in real life. So I met you by coming onto a Facebook site called, I believe it was called Harvey Mamas, where you put out a call to action for donations to be given to moms in your surrounding communities who have been evacuated and displaced. and maybe without their breast pump, their parts, their pads, and other breastfeeding related items. And you put out a call to send donations. There were many addresses where we could drop off or mail the donations. I know I mailed mine out to one address. And you will let me know, Kristine, but at one of the last Facebooks that I checked, I think you said that you estimated that there was over $40,000 in donated items and over 50 pumps. Is that correct?
Yes, it's the total I estimated to be at least right at $40,000 worth, and the total number of pumps is actually closer to 125 breast pumps.
Wowie zow,
Yes.
That is incredible.
In 1 week.
The power of what one can do. Kristine, you're just like this powerful woman. Tell us a little bit background about yourself and how you came to be an IBCLC, and then we're going to get more into the Hurricane Harvey mama stories.
Okay, well, I was in aviation. I had my first child, had a hard time with working and pumping, was told to pump in a bathroom, didn't know what else to do or where else to go. So initially I started off doing that. It was really gross. Wound up switching to pumping in a car, which was unpleasant because it was the heat of the summer in Texas, but I made it work. Continued on, had my next child. Again, I was working and having a difficult time finding the time and the space to pump, and was told I could no longer pump during business hours. So I still managed to make that work and was also a milk donor to the Austin Milk Bank at the time. So I was very determined to make it work. When I was told I could no longer pump during business hours, decided that there's a problem with this situation and that surely there's something I could do to make it better and make it better for others. So I decided to pursue lactation. And it just so happened to be about the same time that WIC was about to do training for breastfeeding counselors. So that's the direction I went. I got hired on with WIC. My clinical training hours, got a lot of training through WIC, did some training on my own, and became a lactation consultant in hopes that I could help other moms with their breastfeeding struggles, but also with their pumping struggles, because I feel like the pumping community a lot of times is left out of the equation.
You're absolutely right. I'm thinking you went from the bathroom to pumping in your car to then being told that you cannot pump during business hours.
Correct. And it was right about the same time that the law was put in place to where you should have protection to pump at work. But because I was at such a small company, I didn't think that applied to me. So I went back to pumping in my car and made it work before work, during lunch, and after work.
So you're not so much sneaking out, but you're running out to your car, getting in your pumping sessions and getting back to work.
Correct.
Now, what year was this? Because for some of our newer listeners and newer moms and pumpers, some are actually quite fortunate and do not have any idea that it used to not be as good. It's still not great for everybody, but for some, right, they don't know what it was like 4, 7, 10 years ago for moms who were told, A, to pump in the bathroom and or that they couldn't pump during business hours. So what year are you talking about?
So my oldest was born in 2005 and my youngest was born in 2009. It was 2009 that the law came out that protected moms with pumping at work. And I just didn't think it applied to me because it was a small business.
Some women on this show might be thinking, oh, that must have been happening like in the 1970s or something. But it was still 2009 is not that long ago.
Right.
Wow, that's crazy. So when you say you had trouble, was most of your trouble related to going back and coordinating and figuring out how and where to pump, and or did you have any early breastfeeding difficulties?
I struggled really bad with breastfeeding. I had both of my guys had tongue ties, and so the entire time that I was able and did have them latched on, I had trauma, cracked, bloody nipples. It was not pleasant, and no one could tell me what I was doing wrong or what was happening that was causing all of these struggles. So because I was pumping from day one, I wound up eventually switching over to pumping with both of them and doing exclusive pumping because I had so much difficulty with the early breastfeeding, with the latching and with just getting the positioning right and with the breastfeeding trauma. And It was not a pleasant experience, and I didn't understand why it was so hard. Later on, I found out that my sister was revised, had her tongue clipped at around 6 years of age because she had speech issues. So it never occurred to me that there might possibly be some tongue tie issues going on. I just thought I was doing something wrong. I didn't know what it was, but I was determined to get them breast milk. So I made it work.
Who did you ask for help with your first baby?
Initially, the sister who I didn't realize was revised as a child, and then my mother-in-law breastfed 7 kids, but the only advice I was able to get from her was drink a beer, it'll help your supply. So not a lot of help there. And then my mom didn't breastfeed. So I asked friends, I asked my family, and nobody was able to help me get that good latch and get beyond the breastfeeding, the early struggles that I had. So pumping for me was just an easy option. And it was something that was not painful. It was something I could manage. My husband was supportive. So I made that work. And I knew I would have to go back to work with both of my children.
So you just went to exclusive pumping pretty early on.
Right.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. You know, moms who pump at work, I say that they take on a part-time job. And moms who exclusively pump, I think you've taken on another full-time job. You and your peers who do so, you are so highly motivated and so tenacious to be able to do that hard work. It just takes, I want to give my baby my breast milk to just another whole level. It's just incredible what you do.
I think the kicker was my sister who was there. Like I said, she was revised for speech issues. At one point in time, she said, you'll never make it to a year, when I said I was just going to switch to pumping. And because it's my sister, that's motivating to me. When somebody tells me I can't do something, that's so motivating to me. So I did it. I actually pumped for 2.5 years with both of my guys.
Wow, it's like you want to take that.
Combined.
Thank you, sis, for pushing me to do something. Now, when you found out that your sister was revised, was that an aha moment that you started thinking about your own experience, or how did you actually find out that both your kids were tied?
You know, it's very much an aha moment because I was driving back from Houston with my parents and I was talking with them about a lot of different things, but somehow the subject of my sister having speech issues, that's what it was. My children, my youngest had speech issues, and we were talking about the speech concerns and the issues, and my parents chimed in and said that my sister was revised around 6 years old. And it clicked for me. And I was well into my breastfeeding training at this time. I'm not sure if I had my LC certification or not, but I was well into my training. And I thought, you know what? I never even considered my guys to possibly have, and either of them to have issues with their tongues. I never thought about it. My oldest spoke beautifully from day one. My youngest had speech issues, but his tongue is really long. Didn't cross my mind until that comment was made. And when the comment was made, I started doing my own research and figured out, sure enough, my oldest had a very obvious, very visible tongue tie that was never addressed as an infant or a child. And so I took them to the ENT. The ENT said, yes, my oldest has a tie, but the ENT said my youngest did not have a tie. And to me, that didn't make sense because my youngest was the one with speech problems. So I would push on it for a little while, trying to get more information, trying to get a diagnosis, not get anywhere with it and let it kind of rest and calm down. And then I'd start pushing again. And my husband was like, you are just obsessed. You're that's all you can think about. You're just obsessed. There may be something going on, but we don't know. We're not getting a diagnosis. So it'll be okay. Just leave it alone. We'll address these issues as they arise. It'll be okay. And I was like, but I can't. My mom intuition said something more is going on and I need to find out what it was. And finally, I took them to a pediatric dentist who said they had the same degree of tie. One was visible and one was not, but they had the same degree of tie. And immediately after, both boys were able to speak more easily. The night terrors that my oldest was having and the sleep issues that he was having seemed to dramatically reduce. And my youngest speech improved enough to where he's no longer in speech in school.
Wow, that's a huge testament. Now, we know as IBCLCs with every case it can be different. However, we often do find that, I don't know if you've worked with moms who they come to see you with baby number 2 or baby number 3, and we do see a tie and we are talking to them about it, but they're a little concerned or very concerned about getting a procedure done. And so then they will ask, typically, what else might it affect? What if I don't do anything about it? And so I talk about what I always say, I stay in my own lane and I talk about what I know. In this particular case, with this particular diet, I will say I believe that this is your primary issue with breastfeeding. And I think that breastfeeding is always going to be difficult for you with either whatever her issue is, pain or low supply or milk transfer, unless this is fixed. And about other things, speech, dentistry, I don't know how it will affect your child for sure. However, here are potential risk factors as your child gets older, and that I talk about speech and dentistry in a very low level kind of way. And I give them information where they can do their own research. And for some people, it is so hard for them to believe, but frequently they will say, my 3-year-old is in speech therapy because he hardly speaks, or he speaks in such a way, or the spacing in between the teeth, or, a bunch of other things. And then they realize that that first or second baby that they were not able to breastfeed is in fact tongue-tied or lip-tied. Those are their aha moments. So here you are saying that that was definitely the case, at least with one of your children. And you also have the experience of taking your baby to one provider who's saying one baby is and the other baby isn't. And I love when you're telling me, it's very common, this, mom, dad thing. Dad is being as supportive and he's saying, listen, this is what we've been told. Let's just let it be. We'll take things as we come. And there Kristine is like, nope. I just cannot stop thinking about this. There's something wrong. I need to fix it. We're called that we're obsessed with it, but we just got this like mother thing that we just have to keep going, like a bull in the china shop. Just keep going and going and going until you figure out what is wrong, because there's something inside you saying this should not be.
Right. And it's strong. It's that motherly intuition is really strong.
Yes, absolutely. That's pretty amazing. So it sounds like you were incensed, probably more with the whole, difficulty with pumping thing, maybe even a little bit more than the early breastfeeding with babies who were tied. And those are the two things that motivated you to become an IBCLC?
They did. Like not having answers when I was struggling with my breastfeeding problems, switching over to pumping and not getting a whole lot of support, just not getting answers. To me, it didn't make sense as to why it was so difficult and why I was not easily able to get answers to my questions when there has to be answers out there. It just isn't always an upfront, in your face, easy to observe answer, but there are answers out there. And that's why when moms are struggling with breastfeeding, I encourage them to seek help, because there's a lot of good community resources.
Yeah, I mean, it's an old-fashioned saying, and I date myself when I say this, but I often feel they can put a man on the moon, but why can't this baby breastfeed? There must be an answer. We must be able to figure it
out. That's right. And moms with babies don't keep normal schedules. So a lot of times their questions that they have aren't at normal hours, aren't during the day. Oftentimes it's at night or just random times. So just to have answers, I would have killed to have those answers back when I was struggling.
Did you not know about IBCLCs or breastfeeding helpers? Was there anybody in the hospital that you felt like you could go back to? Or you just didn't know? Because I gave birth much earlier than you, but there was just really no one there to help me, even if I wanted to try and find someone to hire. There just wasn't. And 2005 is still, the IBCLCs were around, but we still weren't as well known. So did you not know that there was people in a professional capacity who might be able to help you?
I sought out help through the hospital LC with my oldest child and was told that I was doing everything right, that the latch looked fine, just keep working on the latch. You just have to get the baby on deeper. And I think it was pretty much similar, like it was the same scenario with my second child. I feel like I was told the latch looks good, just keep working on it, just get the baby latch deeper. And I didn't call in home visit LC. I guess I didn't realize at the time that you could. Actually, with my first child, we just closed a business. So it really wasn't an option financially for me to have somebody come to me. But again, with my first child, I thought I had great support. I had a sister who did some breastfeeding. I had a mother-in-law who did breastfeeding. I thought I am in a good place. I'll be okay. I'll make it work. and I just couldn't get past the nipple trauma. And then what I didn't know, in addition to having struggling with the latch issues, with pumping, I didn't realize you can put some moisture on the flange or on the nipple before you pumped to reduce that pull from the initial suction and reduce trauma that way too. So even after I had switched from breastfeeding to pumping, I still had cracked
Oh
bloody
yeah, there's
nipples.
probably quite a few things that you've learned along the way as far as I call them breastfeeding hacks for exclusively pumping moms because you start to get
Right.
smart about the whole pumping flanges and like you said, putting some lotions and storage and freezing and all those other guidelines. But what's interesting, what you said is that I would think the same thing because you have some wise women who have breastfed before and they are the experts and they're helping you. You went to the hospital lactation consultant and so you had someone else, an expert helping you. And so in your mind, whether it's a financial issue or not, you're thinking, well, like, am I going to get a fifth and sixth opinion here? Because I have all these other, wise women helping me and they all tell me that the latch is good.
Right.
Who is going to tell me anything different? So that's always interesting. And especially for new mothers to you who are struggling, because I will often get calls from moms who they're desperate for help, yet I know that they're not getting the right help, but they think that they have because they'll say to me, well, I've already seen 3 consultants. And I will frequently say, oh, well, what are some of the things that they told you that you might be struggling with and et cetera? And frequently they will all tell me, well, everybody says that the latch is good, just like you heard, just keep working at it. And so I know that there must be something else going on because clearly she's calling me because she's hurting and the latch is not good. But in her mind, she has already seen 2 or 3 helpers. So I will then take the time and tell her what I will do differently as a professional and a whole complete evaluation from beginning to end and a weight check before and after and everything else that's included and try and encourage her to schedule a private consult because frequently when other things have been missed, it's because, well, if your mother and or mother-in-law, I think it was your mother-in-law who breastfed, if they didn't have any problems, like they do have tons of experience, but they have tons of experience in normal breastfeeding when it's going well. But when it's not, they don't know how to take a look. And I mean, years ago, we just didn't know about ties and palate issues. And so there is wisdom in people such as you and I who've been trained to look for more detailed information, to analyze, to look in their mouths, look at their jawline, in addition to just check the position in the latch, right? Taking a little break to let you know about the 2 groups that I am offering. Registration is now open for these groups that will be starting in October 2017. If you are an IBCLC or if you are a student of lactation, you want to know about these groups. They are for 3 months and both groups will provide amazing opportunities for you to learn and grow with your peers. If you are feeling a lack of connection with other students or IBCLCs, these groups are going to be exactly what you have been waiting for and just what you need. So first, our student IBCLC group, what this does is put you together with your peers who are all looking for similar things. Feedback we have received clearly tells us that you are studying alone and you are looking for accountability, help with specific topics you're struggling with on your own. You are looking for more group interaction, role playing to get you familiar with all kinds of situations and family dynamics. You are looking for an experienced IBCLC to lead your learning group and opportunities to learn from other cultures. The feedback I've received from my peer IBCLCs who are in private practice or those who are wanting to open up their practice, you tell me that you are looking for basically everything if you're just starting out. All the nitty-gritty details on starting your own practice, we can save you a lot of time and money and help you from reinventing the wheel. You need help developing forms. You need help advising how to structure your practice. Everything from marketing and advertising to scheduling and setting prices. There's a lot of IBCLCs who don't know where to begin to set their prices. A lot, admittedly, are saying that they know that they're charging too little, but they just don't know how to go about it all. You need help with setting boundaries with your family life, with other healthcare providers, and with clients. You want to learn how to best network and connect with your peers. How do you figure out vacation time if you're in a solo practice? How do you save money to go away on vacation? A big thing is, how do you make this a business and not just a hobby? This group will give you all you need to be a successful IBCLC in private practice. For more details about the student group and the IBCLC group and registration, go to allaboutmothering.com, and on that page you will see information on how to register for both groups and more details. All right, now we will get back to the show. So you are in a unique position, I think, to know and to really feel to like the emotional core what this must be like for moms who are currently breastfeeding and or pumping during this season of hurricanes. And so I imagine that there was part of you from your breastfeeding experience that motivated you to reach out and get help to moms who are, you knew, were suffering and or will be suffering as the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey came down the pike. So tell me like what you were feeling as a breastfeeding, pumping, exclusively pumping mom. What was in your heart and mind when you were thinking about what was going to happen to the breastfeeding, breast pumping moms as the hurricane was coming?
I was worried, and watching the major organizations, the national organizations, as far as how they came in, how they were handling it and managing it. In my mind, I was just thinking, what about all the women who are either pregnant and have all their stuff ready to go for their baby and now have to evacuate and possibly lose all their stuff? Or the ones who are new moms and struggling to breastfeed, and there's probably not going to be a whole lot of support for them because right now it's life or death. It's get out, get to a safe place, get the basics covered, and then we'll look at the bigger picture. So I was really closely watching like the local WIC organization and the Red Cross and the pump manufacturers and all these companies to see how are they going to help these new and soon to be moms, because now what about like, the ones who do decide to exclusively pump? How are they going to do that? There's really no way to do that right now. And I was actually contacted by someone with Safely Fed USA and also Canada and asked, how can they help? What are my intentions? What are my plans? And I was able to discuss with them what my thoughts were, what I was trying to accomplish, and how to do it and do it safely. And so in talking with them, my initial thought was I wanted to go into the shelters and help the moms who are trying to breastfeed. If they have any questions, if they're in need of any items or anything to help them better be able to breastfeed and achieve their goals, but also just to get through, because stress can obviously affect your milk supply. But also if you're a new mom and you're struggling, it's really hard to get over that hump sometimes and to feed your baby. I know that WIC went to the moms and is assisting with, feeding the babies, but Safely Fed USA had said it's really not a good idea to have anybody pump in a short-term temporary situation because of sanitation concerns. So they said, if you do something like this, are you going to distribute information on how to sanitize these items and also a way to sanitize these items? And I said, I think that honestly would be a good idea and would be necessary. And their overall comment was they really don't want people pumping in the shelters. So I had to shift my focus and my time or my thoughts on going and doing volunteer time and giving out some of these items at the shelters to, okay, the support is probably going to be more needed on the back end on people who are in more permanent housing and have a way to sterilize these items and who are getting back to work and getting back to pumping, and figure out a means of distribution. So initially my thought was, I'm collecting all this stuff. I want to give it to the people who are evacuated and help them as best I can with volunteering my time as an LC. But after talking with that organization, I had to shift my focus. And when I had to shift my focus, I had to reevaluate and figure out a way logistically to get these items to the people who are in need of them and not locally in the shelters. My initial plan was just help the moms however I can. And I didn't think it would make this much of a difference. I didn't think I would have this kind of response. It was amazing to see the response that I got. On the other hand, it was also a bit overwhelming. And then when I shifted my focus from local, which I knew I could deliver, to the coastal Bend area, it really took some thought and some organization and some planning to make things happen on that end. But I never in a million years could have imagined the response that I got. It was amazing.
It's so incredible. I'm going back to the very beginning of your thinking, because I volunteered for various organizations and et cetera. And, either myself singly or as a group, we come up with this, what we think is a great idea. Oh, we'll just volunteer and we'll just do X, Y, Z, and we'll get this one room and we'll invite women here and we'll do whatever. And then you realize, it is not so easy. We do have to find a venue. We thought we were only going to have 10 people show up, and now we have 150. And now they're not letting us meet there because guess what? They're freaking out because now they realize they need liability insurance for all these moms and children's coming in to meet with these free groups that you're offering. And it all of a sudden it explodes, and it just goes on. And you realize that what really started out to be a good idea and is still a good idea. But I like what you said. You had to change. You had to kind of pivot your thinking. And thank goodness you weren't stuck in the my way or the highway kind of a thinking, right? It sounds like from the organization, you got some really good sound advice, because that is true. We have to think about the cleanliness and the sterilization of these pump parts, and how you, with the best of intentions, something like that could actually backfire if you start handing out all of these pump parts and accessories and there's no way to clean them, and moms may not understand, and they're reusing the parts, or they're, spitting on them and wiping it with a towel or something to clean their parts. I mean, we do all this kinds of stuff, not necessarily totally understanding the consequences, and how that, this is what I found sometimes also, that I start off with the greatest of intentions and it backfires, and sometimes I actually get myself into trouble. And what you did, you were smart and wise, and you were connecting with these other ladies who were giving you some really good, valuable insight. So now you switch your thinking. And what I want to know, I don't know if you remember or if you can kind of paraphrase that very first post that you put down out on Facebook to request donations. What did you say in that post?
I do. I was telling people who I was and what I was doing. And I just said, I'm a local LC and I want to help the moms that are displaced by Hurricane Harvey. So if you have anything breastfeeding related or infant feeding related, like pumping items, if you are not using those items anymore, if you would be willing to donate those so that I could take them and figure out a way to get these to the moms that are in need. Because some people, there's people who fall between the cracks. WIC is overwhelmed right now. They're running out of pumps at these locations. You have to work to have insurance. And if you're not working, there's a chance you may not have insurance. But even through insurance, even sometimes through insurance, they're not going to provide you with exactly what you need for when you do go back to work, or if you are separated from your baby and you still want to provide breast milk for your infant.
So you probably thought, I don't know, I'm just going to take a guess, you might get 10, 15 people saying, hey, I got some extra parts. Can I send them to you?
Right, exactly. That's what I thought. And so initially I was driving around from house to house, picking up items until I got all these responses in, and I was like, oh, Lord. And then my husband goes, you cannot drive around all over Austin and pick up all these items. And I said, I realize that. So I actually put a post out there asking for volunteers to borrow their porch so that people could drop off donations at their porch. And then I could stop by 5 or 6, maybe, locations and pick it all up. It morphed into something so much bigger. And I had 9 drop sites. 10 drop sites. All of these sites collected items. And when I started loading stuff up, I got worried that I wasn't going to be able to fit everything into my minivan, which hauls a lot of stuff because of the response.
I know one day when I was about to send my package, I went on and then there were all these other addresses. And I have to say that I just skimmed the email and I'm like, oh, like, which one should I send it to? I don't know. And then I took a closer look at it and I realized that they were all drop-off points. So you could probably write a mini book on this now, because again, when you started, who thought that you'd be having to drive all around Austin? Now you realize you can't do it on your own. Your husband's saying no can do. Your van can't hold all of this. So now you pivot to another like line of thinking, oh, I need drop-off stations. And then, I mean, I think that exploded too, because if you give me permission and send them to me, well, I actually have them on my Facebook page, but you'll let me know if I have permission, because I want to post the pictures that I think it started to overtake your whole living room area with all of the donations. And I just saw, parts and pumps all over the place. I may have seen it in the back of your car, that you just had some really great pictures of some of the items that you had donated. That was just, in my mind, I'm like, wow, she's gotten like, a whole lot more than she ever anticipated.
Right. Well, it consumed my living room. It consumed my garage. I actually borrowed my neighbor's garage, and it consumed a fair amount of space in her garage. So it was crazy.
Tell me, what did you do with the pumps that you received as far as cleaning them and sterilizing them?
So I do have a gauge I can use to test the pumps, and I'm making sure that I test all the pumps, because I don't want a mom to wind up with a pump that doesn't work very well and then for her to lose her supply. All of the pumps that I received, except for the Medela pump and style pumps, from what I understand and what I've read, they are cleanable, reusable. When I say all, I mean like the Hygeia, the Spectra, the bigger, better known pumps have been shown, according to the information that I'm familiar with, to be safe as long as they're cleaned and tested. The Medela pump and styles, however, were the bulk of the ones that I received. And I reached out to Medela to see if they were interested in doing anything more with these, what their thoughts were on it. And they said, well, at the moment, we're not interested in helping, because we are giving out manual pumps to the moms that are in need in the shelters. So those pumps, which I'm not related, I'm not an employee of, I'm not tied to or linked to Medela whatsoever, but I am a big fan of Medela, because that's the type of pump I used with my guys, and I'm very knowledgeable about the pump because that's the pump I used, and I've had to defend that pump on numerous occasions.
5 years of pumping with Medela pumps?
Yeah, I did. I had a lot of experience with it, and then when I worked at the lactation clinic, I saw these pumps over and over and over and over. What I've done with those pumps is I've tested them, I've sanitized them, I've sanitized the exposed side of the diaphragm and the faceplate front and back, made sure it was dry, put it back together. Like I said, I tested it. And those pumps, honestly, I don't want to see them go into the trash, because they are really good, strong pumps. But I think those pumps are just going to have to be donated out with a notation that says that it is a used pump. There is a risk of contamination, and there's no longer a warranty. But they are still good pumps. And so I'm working with both La Leche League, and I believe I might actually be working with an organization out of Houston I think it's the WIC organization, but I'm not 100% positive. But I am working with La Leche League just to get the pumps into the community, so that if moms have a need and they are able to get these pumps, that they might fill that gap until the government or until these other pump manufacturers get into these communities to get the free pumps through insurance or through WIC out there to help those moms in need. All of the tubing has been discarded. All of the old used tubing has been discarded. And I did have somebody send me some replacement tubing, and that's already gone out with some La Leche League leaders. I feel like as long as there's a disclaimer, because Medela said there's no longer a warranty, there is a risk of contamination, it is a used pump, that those pumps hopefully can get to some moms in need and just fill that gap, at least temporarily, to help them get over this hump until some of the communities are restored, some of the highways and transportation systems are restored. I personally will not be giving out the used Medela pumps. I don't anticipate or expect any other lactation professional, because I know there is a risk with those pumps, but I think there's a risk with anything you do with breastfeeding and with babies. There's always a risk of contamination. You can touch a grocery cart and then touch your baby, and you could have pneumonia or herpes or whatever on that handle of that grocery cart. You have to put those steps in place to sanitize and clean as much as possible to reduce the risk of any transmission of germs.
Right.
To the baby.
And I think that's such a good point. And we talk about, especially in times of disasters, risks versus benefits. We do the same thing with medication and mothers, risk versus benefits. It's usually not an always or never, an all or a nothing kind of a thing with mothers and babies. And I did a show after the CDC came out with their newest guidelines, after the article came out about that one baby who got very, very ill from the pump parts. But it was a NICU baby, born early, lots of health issues. First of all, it was like a year and a half that it took for this article to come out to mainstream. So one of my arguments, getting on my pulpit about that one was if this is all so dangerous and we need to change the guidelines to make them so stringent that moms are going to even be fearing pumping, why did it take a whole year and a half for all this information to get out there to the mainstream public? So that was one of my beefs. And, just talking about that, even if one baby gets sick, ill, or dies from unclean pump or pump parts, that is one baby that's very, very important. So we don't need to say we have 10, 15 babies die or be affected by it to really do something. However, I did want to, tell people that we're just talking about one baby that was a year and a half. There hasn't been any incidences since. And when you think about the millions of moms who are pumping, like you, in the bathroom, in your car, in many different places and all over the world, that, this is a rarity that happens. So when we're talking about the pumps that you're doing your best to sterilize as much as you can, giving that, information out that it is, you can't guarantee. And you also can't guarantee that the pump is working well. I mean, it could be working well when you test it, but then something could happen afterwards. And what I really liked about what you said, again, risk versus benefits in daily life and always having concerns, is that, this is one of the things that I added to my show also, talking about I have been around enough pumping moms and in their homes, and I was a pump rental station, and I couldn't believe like the conditions that some of the pumps came back in, the dirt, the dust, the cat and dog hair. And while it might have kind of yucked me out, I still always said to myself, these babies all seem to be fine, Like you said, you can't control every mom, like getting in and out of your car, touching shopping carts, wiping their face, putting their fingers in their baby's mouth, and all this kind of stuff goes on all the time. That to keep these pumps from moms who need them to get the milk out would certainly be a shame. So to let the moms decide, how they wanted to handle it. And I think I also, I put my 2 cents in about the manual pumps because I felt that moms who are given them in evacuation centers or other places, even homes that they're hanging out in, they may not have electricity, and these beautiful pumps, even from other companies, may be worthless to some of them because there's no electricity. So there is a good use of the manual pumps. Plus, I think in times of stress, sometimes it is hard for moms to let go and let down and let the milk flow. And they actually do better with hand expression or with manual pump, that they can really get a feel for their breast tissue and where the milk is, and like almost a deeper connection for some moms, and actually works better. So I'm thrilled that they were giving out manual pumps too.
Same here. I was happy to hear that they were supporting the moms in the shelters with manual pumps and with some support. It was very limited support, but they were still supporting those moms. And like I said, as soon as Safely Fed USA and I communicated, then it was easier for me to shift my focus off the ones who are actually here because of evacuation and think about the moms in the communities. And that's, even they had said, it's probably more so the moms in the communities that are devastated, that are probably going to be in need of the storage bags, the breastfeeding pillows, all the other items that came in, because it wasn't just pumps. It was a numerous, variety of items. But they said those are the ones who probably would benefit more from these items. And so that made it easier for me to shift my focus on getting these pumps cleaned and tested and processed and figure out a way of distribution so that I could do what I promised to do from the beginning.
It sounds like you got a lot of other items in addition to breast pumps. So you mentioned pillows. And did you get nursing pads for moms?
Yeah, so we got nursing pads, we got milk storage bags, we got all kinds of accessories, we got hands-free pumping bras, we got nursing tanks, we got breastfeeding pillows. I mean, it was a huge variety in items that were
That's
donated and had to be sorted, and linens had to be laundered, and so
Oh, right.
it's
And that's what I
definitely
was
been
going
a
to say. When
process.
you start off with this seed of an idea, I really want to help these moms. So not only are you picking up and going around town and then mobilizing and getting other people involved and using neighbors' garages, you're also in the business of cleaning and sterilizing and laundering and packaging up and separating and organizing. And now you've taken on a temporary full-time job. Tell me, did you have the opportunity to meet and or visit with any moms who were the recipients of any of the donations?
I've had a few moms post to the page, but because I was still working out the logistics or the distribution, I haven't like physically met any of the moms. But I'm hoping that once all the distribution is done and in process, that I'll actually get a chance to meet some of the ones who have benefited from this. I still haven't even met most of the people who were my drop-off sites. And I have to say, they stepped up, especially the North location drop-off site. She has been a huge, huge help with everything from sorting, and we've
Wow.
never even met her. We've never met in person. So I told him, hoping that after all the dust settles and everything is kind of calmed down and we get all this stuff sorted and out and done, that I can at least get together and have dinner with her, because I've never met most of these people. We're only connected through these online mom groups, and it's just been crazy how it morphed into something
Wow,
so
how nice
big
when
so
you think about
quickly.
afterwards of all of you getting together, having dinner and debriefing.
Yeah, that's my hope, is to get together and meet up with everybody and thank them, because like I said, we've never met. They have no obligation to me. They don't know me. I mean, some of the moms in the communities know me because some of them have been my clients, but the majority of these people and I have never actually met or had any face-to-face interaction. It was all just I've seen the power of the moms. I was part of Human Milk for Human Babies. It's amazing that organizations like this on a completely volunteer basis and have lasted as long as they have. And I know that there's a lot of power. If you get a lot of moms together and they have this goal or this desire to
Like,
do
yeah, like
something,
you said,
they do
all of
it. They make it
that
happen.
in a week. Just think about that. That's so incredible how sometimes we struggle for weeks and weeks and weeks to get a little job done, right? And then you and your amazing group of volunteers manage to collect all of this, all of these donations and disseminate it. And so there are many moving parts to this, and there's a whole lot more than just you involved in the seed of an idea and seeing it through. So I just wanted to have you on the show. I think you're doing an amazing job. I know that you're not looking for any great big thank you, but I do thank you for all the moms who will never have the opportunity to actually meet the one person who started this seed of an idea in your community and who have greatly benefited from it. And for quite a few of these moms, you're probably a big reason why they're still breastfeeding or pumping and getting their milk out for their babies. So I think that in your heart, but you'll just never really see all of these women and babies whose lives you directly affected in a positive way. So I just wanted to thank you so much.
Well,
So
thank you. I
what is
appreciate that.
next for you? Is all the donations and everything in and you've given it to other people to disseminate? Is there anything else that you're doing in your community for other moms who are breastfeeding?
So I still have some of the items here. I'm still in the process of distribution. I still have some pumps. I call it my pump pyramid. I have a pump pyramid in my garage of pumps that I still have to get through and try to get all of these out. And I told my husband, I said, I'm not opposed to driving over to the Gulf Coast area or to Houston. And he goes, well, I'd prefer if you didn't. So I'm working on the distribution I've already got some headed down south from me, but I want to go east as well. So I'm still trying to get all of that processed, but I do plan on doing some breastfeeding support groups here in my community, because I had talked about it and I just never followed through. I was waiting for my boys to go back to school to become committed and to do some free breastfeeding classes, because we do have a WIC. I'm just outside of Austin. We do have a WIC clinic in our community, But I feel like there's still a lot of moms who just aren't getting that education and that prenatal training to feel confident going into breastfeeding. And I want them to feel confident because I didn't feel confident and I definitely didn't get the support on the back end. And there are some amazing community organizations in our area. So if they really can't afford to hire somebody, I want these people to know that there are organizations that they can still turn to for help. But I'm also in the community, and there are some moms who just prefer to have someone come to them in their environment and then get reimbursed for the visit. So I plan on doing some breastfeeding trainings and some breastfeeding support groups. I just have not set those up yet. And part of the reason I haven't done that since my boys are now back to school is because this morphed into such a big event and a big production. Trying to get this finished up, do my follow through. I've committed to these moms. They've donated these items to me. I'm going to do my best to get them where they need to be and then focus on some more community activities. Right now, the teaching and the support groups have not yet happened, but they are soon to come.
And pretty tenacious, so you may not have started the groups exactly in the timeline that you wanted to, but I'm sure that they're going to happen and be a huge benefit to the moms in your communities. That's wonderful that you're willing to do that also. Tell me a little bit about your practice, Operation Lactation.
Like I said, I got into lactation in 2010, got my certification in 2013, and had bounced around. I couldn't quite cut ties with aviation. I just kept getting sucked back in and kind of bounced back and forth between aviation and lactation, but have finally cut my ties to aviation. And in 2015, my husband had a variety of health concerns and health issues, and I was sitting around with him. And I kept getting calls for lactation. And he said, when are you going to start charging? He said, you're just giving away all your time and you really want to be out of aviation. This is your chance to get out of aviation, do more with lactation, still have an income. He's like, what are you doing? And I said, I don't know. He said, well, maybe you should go ahead and start up your company. I'd already had the name. I had the name for a couple of years and just not moved forward with it. And I said, I just really have a hard time charging these moms because I was in their shoes. I understand. I don't want to be, I don't want to be looked at as like greedy or like just looking for money. And he goes, it is a profession. What you're doing is considered a career. You're not being greedy. You're not just looking at the money aspect. You're doing what you like, but you're getting paid to do it. And I said, you know what? You're right. And he said, you should go ahead and start your private practice. So lo and behold, within a week, I set up a website. I put my name out there. I don't do a whole lot of advertising, but I feel like the mom community is so strong that just the communication that takes place there might be enough. And sure enough, lo and behold, it has been. I just get referrals off of previous clients and have just a little bit of advertising out there. I have my website and I'm doing what I love. And because I do what I love, it doesn't feel like work to me. So that was my thinking was I have a little bit of time. I could collect some donations. I could take these to these moms in need and I could volunteer some of my time and we could still be okay financially.
It takes that kind of thinking from someone who can be objective, that's not in the thick of doing this work, because many of us start in this profession by volunteering our time. Not everybody, but frequently because we've had our own breastfeeding issues. And we just have such a passion and we know what it feels like. So we want to help everyone who we come in, arm's reach of. And then when it comes to thinking about a business, we do have this, I'll use the word guilt for the moment, about charging people, just all those same words that you used that were greedy. And how do we charge people for something, when we're just helping them, when we've been giving it away for free for such a long time. And your husband put it so beautifully. It is a profession. We do have an expertise. We have taken a lot of training. Many of us have spent a lot of money getting trained. We have liability insurance. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with being able to do something that you really enjoy doing and charging for it. As a matter of fact, I think there are so many people who do work and they're not really happy and feeling fulfilled in the work that they're doing, and they're getting paid for it. And it's almost this connotation that we have that well, if I get paid for this job that I hate doing, I'm okay with that. But when we think about if someone pays me for doing something that I would do for free, then that makes me feel greedier. I really shouldn't be doing that. So it's an interesting way of thinking. And as women and or IBCLCs, we really have to shift our thinking into that business mind like your husband. Because most of us do have to put food on the table, families to feed,
Right.
bills to pay, and etc. And how long can some of us go on doing this kind of work full time and just volunteering our time? And so it's very interesting. So I'm glad your husband had that line of thinking. And again, here you are. You have an idea in your mind. You get your website in a week. You put your shingle up, so to speak, and you're working. So that must be I don't know you personally, but that must be just the kind of person that you are. So I'm glad. And the other thing is that you also realize that you can charge people for your expertise, and you also have a lot of control over other aspects of your life, and you can choose and control where you want to volunteer. So
Right.
Here again, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. So in my life, I volunteered for many, many years in mothers groups. And if I volunteer my time or my energy or give out free pump parts or etc., that's because I choose to do it. I may not be advertising that I'm doing it, but yes, I charge for the work that I do. But behind the scenes, I'm also donating
Right.
and doing other things that I feel good enough about. And that's what I want people who are thinking about becoming an IBCLC or someone who's sitting in your spot now thinking, oh, I really would like to start a business, but I felt they had charging moms. I want them to know they have a profession, they have an expertise, and, just
Right.
get out there and do your business. It's okay to get paid for something that you love, and then choose where you also want to volunteer. So don't not volunteer, but, make those choices.
Right. Right. And I love the community involvement. I love that aspect of what I do. And it does help for me to be able to still get out in the community and volunteer my time. But on the back end, when moms really need that time, they really need that focus to be able to go do a consultation, go through everything as thorough as possible, give them answers, and then be able to bill them and then provide them with the super bill where they can get reimbursed. And hopefully they do that quickly. But, as long as the Affordable Health Care Act is in place, they should be able to get that money back so that it's not an out-of-pocket expense. But I do my best to answer as many questions as possible without going into a consultation. But there are times where it's just so much and there's so many questions that it does require that one-on-one time and that complete consultation to get the answers to the mom that has questions and to be thorough about it and to make sure that nothing is missed. Because oftentimes I have been like their third or fourth, sometimes fifth LC, and they're paying this money. They want answers. They're not always getting answers.
The other thing that was helpful for my mindset was I realized at a certain point that if I'm taking away time from my family, my children, to go out and help other moms, that I did want to be paid for it because I was taking away time from my own family. And I think when people do that and spend way too much time taking away from their family and giving of others, there is a burnout that comes with that. And they don't go the long haul because there starts to be burnout,
Right.
resentment, and all of the kinds of negative feelings for some people. Again, especially when you're taking away too much from your family.
Right.
So there's just an interesting mindset shift and thinking about it. So I'm happy that that you and others are being able to do both. If anyone is listening and they're from your area and they wanted to get in touch with you, and or anybody who's listening who wants to learn more about how to help moms in a disaster situation, because unfortunately, this is not going to be the last time we are going to have moms, babies, and families in need in this particular focus for breastfeeding. And there might be some people who might want to learn a few things that you've learned along the way. How might they contact you?
I have a website. It's operationlactation.com. I also have a Facebook page. I don't do a whole lot of interactive post. I just post information regularly, but it's easy to reach me either through the website, through the Facebook page, or
All right. Well, thank you so
6415029.
much. I really feel that this was extremely valuable, getting really a bird's eye view and finding out about someone who was in the trenches and volunteering and helping breastfeeding moms. And I really do appreciate you coming on the show and sharing a bit of your story, telling us about the volunteer efforts and just enlightening us all. And also, I hope to motivate other people to chip in, volunteer, donate. Like I said, this time around, there's still a lot of stuff going on all around the United States and in other countries. There are many ways that people can volunteer, and you're giving us a really hands-on view of what it was like for you. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Kristine had some really important words to share. If you are unable to resolve your problem, keep looking, keep searching, keep asking questions. I have learned a long time ago that mothers need to be paid attention to. I've also learned a long time ago to pay attention to that little voice inside your head, to listen and pay attention to your gut instincts. Kristine, well, she may not have known exactly what was wrong. However, in her gut, she knew that something wasn't right and that there were answers out there for her. And yet, she just couldn't find the answers. But she did not stop until she found out what the answers were and what her problems were. Many of us in the field of lactation, well, we were motivated to become an IBCLC, just like Kristine, because we didn't get the help we needed when we struggled. As I say goodbye to you today, I want all my listeners, if any of you are going through breastfeeding problems, or you're struggling with challenges that you just feel like you haven't been able to find the right help with, please try hard, keep looking for answers. Keep pumping if you need to keep up your supply until you can get the help you need. Preferably, you will find help locally. But if you can't, I can help you. Please go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz, where you can find information on how to have a Skype consult with me. Until the next show, bye-bye.